Hello, and thank you so much for being here on Inspired Coach Podcast. I'm so delighted to have your company and really excited to share with you today a wonderful success story of the Beautiful You Life Coaching Course and Academy. It's the fabulous Lucy Quick. Let's get to know her a little bit better. I'm just going to read her bio out first and then tell you a little bit more about this episode ahead. So let's do that. Lucy is a former corporate high performer whose journey through burnout and alcohol addiction led her to rock bottom and ultimately to transformation. After getting sober, she retrained as a certified coach and founded Thrivalist, an online sobriety coaching platform and membership community that she scaled and successfully sold, making the start of her mission to redefine success through wellbeing. Today, Lucy is the founder and principal consultant of Balanced Elite, a workplace consultancy bridging high performance with human well-being. As a coach, keynote speaker, retreat facilitator, and creator of the Brave Burnout Prevention Framework, Lucy empowers high achievers and organizations to create psychologically safe, sustainable cultures where people thrive. You can find Lucy at balancedelite.com. Wow, right? What a story. What an absolutely amazing journey, which Lucy shares more about with us in this episode ahead. And there are so many touch points in this wonderful journey that have the potential, I think, to be of such interest to so many of you, even if you have not experienced issues of burnout and alcohol addiction like Lucy has. I know that all of us will have some level of interest in at least part of her story here, which is around what happens when we start a business in this coaching space and we think to ourselves, actually, I want to pivot and change. Can I even do that? Well, Lucy did in a really successful way, and that's a wonderful part of her story. And also that she's now doing this incredible work with so many different touch points, one-on-one coaching, speaking, in-person workshops, online experiences. She's quite a Renaissance woman, and I think that's incredible, and there are so many things that can inspire you in her success journey ahead. Enjoy. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inspired Coach Podcast, or if you're listening and joining us for the very first time, welcome to you for that very first time. Wow, do we have a success story for you today. I'm absolutely delighted to be introducing you to and sharing the wonderful Lucy Quick. Lucy, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me, Julie. It's such an honour to be here with you.
Oh, I cannot wait for this conversation, Lucy, because your coaching journey is one, it's like a road trip. It's like an adventure. It's got lots of pivots and twists and turns, and it's a real page turner. And so I can't wait to dive in. So let's do that. You know, we're going to begin in a really obvious place, and I would just love for you to share with everyone what was happening in your life when you first thought to yourself, I think I might like to become a coach.
So, Julie, do you mind if I go back a little bit even from that moment?
You sure can. You see, here we go, twists and turns already. She's taken us off-road, folks, before we've even started. I love it. Go for it.
So the calling for me really began at a very young age. And I always had this, I loved helping people. I loved to be that friend that supported people through tough times or even strangers. And then getting into my sort of teenage years, my life started to go off course, and I developed a drinking problem at quite a young age. So as a teenager, I was using alcohol in an unhealthy way, and that carried on into my 20s. And it really took my life off course from the path that I was meant to be on. And, you know, from that really young age, I left high school and I went in to study psychology. So I always had this desire to support people. But even sitting in my psychology lectures with a hangover or, you know, after a really big weekend, I felt so disconnected from myself and so unable to even concentrate, to be able to study, to pass anything. And I ended up dropping out after 12 months of this psychology degree. And again, you know, the path changed a little. I did finish a degree, I did a business degree, and I got into corporate marketing, which I thought it was what I wanted to do, but it just drove me even further into using alcohol and really disconnecting from myself throughout all of my 20s. And, you know, my drinking really was the reason for why I didn't, you know, fulfill that purpose from those early years. I moved over to London and, you know, became really involved in the party scene over there, and I was traveling and again, just really disconnected from who I really was. And I had a lot of dark times during that period. And I remember at the time having a conversation with a friend and saying, this is just not who I'm supposed to be. I know that there's another life for me. And I remember saying to her, I've heard about life coaches and I just feel like there's something in that for me. And she laughed at me. She's like, can you imagine you as a life coach, honestly? And I kind of laughed and I thought, no, of course not. I'm a train wreck. And so coming back to Melbourne in my early 30s, I met my ex-husband now, and we very quickly got married. And, you know, again, it was just sort of trying to plug those holes inside of myself rather than doing the tough work and healing. And I had 2 little kids and my drinking escalated. And then around the age of 35, it was the end of 2018, I was working in corporate marketing. I experienced a huge a burnout with a very toxic, narcissistic, bullying boss. And I had a full-blown alcohol addiction at this point. And I hit a rock bottom. And I had a really, I talk about this messy Christmas period, which was 7 years ago now. And I woke up one day and I just knew that was enough. Enough was enough. I had to stop doing this to myself. I was not living as the person that I was supposed to be living as. And I decided to, you know, the first step was I needed to stop drinking. And I did that. And it was the 1st of January 2019. And it began as just stopping drinking. But what unfolded after that was this process of really becoming the person or the version of myself that I was supposed to be. And through that process, when you go from completely numbing out and disconnecting from who you are to suddenly learning about yourself and sitting in those feelings of, you know, life is tough and I have some, you know, little traumas from childhood that I haven't dealt with properly. What also happens is this amazing process of feeling deeply inspired. All of a sudden, it's like the contrast from being you know, completely numb to suddenly so awake and alive. And I just had so much inspiration. So I actually met, and I talk about these synchronicities in those early months of my sobriety. I met this lovely woman through a sober group that I'd become a part of. And she mentioned this woman, one of her friends who was hugely inspiring. Her name was Lucy Allen. And she said she's just finished a life coaching course. And I just, you know, there's that word again, life coach. Oh my gosh. And I rang Lucy. I got her number and I rang her and we spoke about this course that she just finished with Beautiful You. And she said it's just the most amazing experience of her life. And I remember where I was when she told me this, and I had the full body goosebumps, and I just thought, this has got to be it. Like, I'm on the path now. There's something that feels so right about this. And then sort of parallel to this, I'd also experienced a lot of, I guess, like pushback with my sobriety. It was really early in the sober curious movement. So it hadn't really come to Australia, to be honest. And what we've seen since has been this amazing wave of sobriety, which has been awesome to watch. But I was getting a lot of pushback from friends and families, oh, maybe you can just have a couple of drinks here and there. But I knew, no, I had to be sober. I went to AA and I felt it wasn't, they weren't my people. I didn't feel as empowered as I knew I should be feeling. I felt hugely inspired by this journey of not drinking, and I wanted to share it with the world. So I started posting on social media and I got a huge response. People were really excited, and I developed a little bit of a small following on Instagram. So that was happening at the same time as meeting Lucy. And, obviously I remember, Julie, I actually had a phone call with you as well. And you were sort of the first person that, could see my vision, which was I would love to be able to pull in all of the things that I'm learning about sobriety and be able to support other people on that journey. And so I did the wonderful biker course, which was just an incredible experience. So that was the beginning.
Well, everyone, I told you it was going to be a page turner, didn't I? And it already is. Lucy, thank you so much for taking us back to little Lucy and bringing us up to that particular point where you studied with us with that passion that you now had for supporting other people who were sober curious and exploring that for themselves. And that was the area of coaching and the business that you had when it's not what you have now, and we're going to talk about that pivot and change, but when you first started out as a coach, that was the work that you did, wasn't it? And you built that business up to be incredibly successful.
Yes. So during the biker training, you actually Biker partnered me up with my buddy Jen, and she was also interested in the sober space. And I think that we were the first two women to do biker who had that sort of niche.
You were.
Yes.
You were. Absolutely.
And it was honestly a match made in heaven. And I sort of brought this idea of bringing a community of women who were deeply inspired and excited about this decision to not drink. I just knew that there was something there because I also hadn't experienced that through my own process of getting sober. And Jen, who was a lawyer, had been spending months and months putting together the most incredible manual for her own course to help women get sober. So the two of us together, we decided to join forces and to create a business together. And Thrivalist was born, and it was early 2020, so it was before we all went into lockdown. And the timing actually to launch the online coaching business was really good because everyone was online, and it's not really a good thing, but everyone was drinking more than they wanted to around that time. The rates among women, it was sort of 1 in 5 had an alcohol use disorder at that point. And so Jen and I began by building out what was an 8-week course around getting sober and creating a life so we would say wondrous that you don't want to escape it. It's, you want to be in your life and love it the way Jen and I had through our own journey. And it started as an 8-week course, and I think we literally sold it out within a week of posting on Instagram. And our first cohort was about 36 incredible women, and we actually had a guy as well. So we were open to anyone who identified with that kind of feminine energy and was willing to lean into the power of having a whole bunch of amazing women together. And it was so great, and that was our first course. And from there, over the coming years, we changed the business from just an 8-week course into a membership platform. So we knew that there were women or people who wanted to join at any time of the day. It wasn't so much wait until the next course rolls out. So we ended up with a membership platform. We built it out on Mighty Networks, which was so easy to use. And we had a load of guest experts who would come and support our community. We had 4 group coaching calls a week. We had a psychologist that would join in once a week. And just, it was that kind of full service support for anyone in early sobriety. And and it ended up being that everyone would stay. So they'd pay their membership fee, they'd get sober, and then they'd say, well, I don't want to leave. This is such a great
This is my
space.
people.
These are my people.
Home. Yeah.
And that's when we thought, well, we need to start running some in-person stuff. So we would have in-person meetups, and around 2 years into Thrivalist, Jen moved back to South Africa. So I bought her out of the business and ran it on my own. And I ran my first in-person wellness retreat with Thrivalist as well during that period. So it was a lot. It was, there was a lot of work went into those early days. And I was reflecting on that this morning, thinking I used to get up at 4 a.m, just like out of bed on my computer, so inspired and excited just to be pouring so much energy into this business, because it was so special and rewarding. It was a beautiful experience.
Amazing. Thank you. And just what divine work. And you really, both you and Jen, what an incredible buddy pairing you were during the course. And I don't know whether I had any idea in pairing the two of you together that you had this particularly extraordinary thing in common. Maybe you both mentioned it in your application, or maybe you didn't, and I'm not sure, but clearly it was meant to be, which is absolutely wonderful. And you built something together, and then you went on to do it on your own so beautifully. But it's not what you're doing now. And so I'd like to now talk about the pivot, Lucy, because I think that this is a really important thing to talk about, because sometimes when people start something, not just in business, but even just in life, they can think to themselves, well, I'm locked in to that now. I'm locked into this career because that was the degree that I got, or I'm locked into this particular thing and I can't change. But you actually made the decision to change and to step away from Thrivalist, which was very, very successful, and start to move in a different direction with your coaching and your business. Tell us, what made you decide to do that? What was the impetus for changing and now working in a whole different sort of area altogether?
So I talked a little bit about this journey of healing that I was on, which was really accelerated, especially during Biker. And that's just something I wanted to mention about doing Biker. I felt like not only was I learning how to be a really great coach, I was also really pushed to look at myself and to work on myself and grow as a person. And so through that process of Biker and then Thrivalist, that was all happening. And it doesn't slow down, it keeps going, and I'm becoming more connected with, what I'm supposed to be and the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And so Thrivalist felt incredible, incredibly aligned, and it felt like my calling and my purpose for a good couple of years. And then what happened was I started to realize there was almost like this next chapter that I was entering as a person. So I'd been successfully sober for many years at that point. Alcohol didn't really, it's never came into my mind anymore. And what was coming up for me was, well, part of this reason for why I used alcohol in such an unhealthy way was because of the trauma that I experienced working in corporate marketing for 20 years, because of the toxic cultures that I was a part of and the behavior that was accepted and how I was treated. And then a new sort of calling began. And I was at the same time as running Thrivalist, and I had about 5 coaches supporting me at that point in the membership platform. I was also coaching women outside of Thrivalist who were struggling with corporate burnout, and who were, one in particular had kind of gone through a very, nasty situation with a toxic boss. And it felt like my passion was sort of moving towards that space. And something that I knew for sure was Thrivalist was not ever going to close down. It just wasn't, an option. And one of my coaches who, and again, this is totally the universe supporting me and the business and the people that the business needed to support. But one of the coaches said, if you ever want to, leave Thrivalist, I would love to talk about purchasing the business from you. And so I remember sitting down and having a long discussion with my partner, and he said, well, just put down your price. What's it worth? Let's look at like what your revenue there's a way to calculate what a business is valued at. Revenue, I can't remember exactly, but I used that calculation and come up with a number that feels really, good for you. And I did that. I put a number down, and Georgie was honestly, I couldn't have thought of anyone more well equipped. So she'd come through Thrivalist as a member. So the first time I spoke to Georgie, she was on her rock bottom hungover bed and signed up, I think, at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning after a big Saturday night. Got to know her through coaching her. She was training to be a coach at the same time. She didn't do biker. She did, I can't remember which one it was, but she had her own coaching qualification. And she was beautiful. The members loved her. So she began mentoring the community, which was running a call every now and then. And then she became a paid coach. And she was honestly, I wouldn't have sold it to anyone other than Georgie at that point. And it was just this, divine synchronicity from the universe. I said the number and she was like, yep, no problem.
Aligned.
I was just like,
that.
Honestly. And it was really a weird time. So the handover took about 4 months, 3 to 4 months. And it was weird because I was saying goodbye to my baby, this business. But at the same time, I just knew that it was the right time. So I handed to Georgie, and Georgie and I we still communicate regularly, but we often talk about, like, we literally didn't have one hiccup the whole time. I think there was like one tiny issue, but it was just, everything was easy. And I'm not saying that this is normal, by the way, because I've had other situations in business where it has not been easy. But this particular process of handing over was really great. And since then, Georgie's taken Thrivalist in a different direction, and it's still very much supporting women to quit drinking. And it's been, she's getting some great PR, and I still get messages from people saying, oh gosh, I love Georgie and Thrivalist. So that was that process. Yes. And then,
amazing.
Yes. And then came Balanced Elite. So
yes, the business that you have now. So tell us a little bit more about that and your passion for where you are now.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, I think it's really important when building a business that you stay really true to this calling and this passion. When it starts to feel disconnected from that, and it has for me many times, that's when things get a little murky, and you might deliver a program and it's like, oh, I don't know how I really felt about that, or you don't get all of the signups that you'd normally get. And so I knew through that I had to get really clear on what it was that I wanted to do in this corporate space. And it was something to do with my experience working in corporate, and ultimately not really being able to have a very successful business career. So I worked in marketing, and I worked for some big corporate companies. And every time I tried to, get a promotion or step up the ladder a little bit, someone would push me back down. I wasn't liked because I was very confident, and at times I remember a CEO saying to me, I delivered an amazing presentation and I knew it was amazing. And then she came into my office after, and she said, you came across a little arrogant. And that stuck with me. And these little chips on your confidence and your self-esteem, it really chips away at you. But I can look back now and say, I know why she did that. I know why she wanted to push me back down, because she didn't like that I had done a good job. And unfortunately, in the toxic world, there's a lot of this. So that's where I'm like, okay, this is going to be tough, right? I'm going back, I'm facing a lot of these workplaces that I really had a lot of anxiety, leaving them feeling really disempowered and unhappy. And I really pushed myself. I said, it's time to go back and reconnect with colleagues and start to support people in this space, because I know there's a lot of people that need that support. And so Balanced Elite began with one-on-one coaching with corporate, I say women, but now I have got several male clients as well, but corporate people who are really struggling with their own self-esteem and self-worth and imposter syndrome and burnout. And often that will flow into, well, they're using substances to self-medicate and those sorts of things as well. So that's where it began. And then what I realized is a lot of the workplaces are really wanting to bring in this coaching element into their teams. And so, and I have to give Lucy Allen credit at this point as well. So Lucy was a coach when I first started with Biker, and I re-engaged Lucy when I started Balanced Elite. Mm-hmm. And I remember Lucy also does this work, but she does it on a bigger scale. She's been doing it for longer than I have, and she's famous in this space, honestly. Like, people know who she is.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
She's amazing.
Both Lucy's.
But you know what she did? She coached me, and she told me her secrets, right? Knowing very well that I might be, and we had an agreement from the start, which is like, if she's working with a client, I'm not going to go and start trying to work with the same client. And that I would never do that to her anyway.
Boundaries.
But yeah,
boundaries, people.
But she honestly, she coached me through that process as well of starting Balanced Elite and helping me like put together a proposal document, a corporate proposal document, which is something that I hadn't done in the coaching space before, and how to pitch to corporate clients and how to build those relationships, which is very different to building relationships with one-on-one clients or onboarding Thrivalist members. So that was a huge learning curve for me, and it really stretched me because I had to put on my suit again, and I thought I would never have to put on a suit again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm walking back into these boardrooms that traumatized me. But it's been a journey, and since that point I've worked with some pretty cool clients. So I've done a 12-month program with RM Williams, which is really supporting their teams through burnout prevention. So I created my own burnout prevention framework, which is called BRAVE, and it stands for Boundaries, Rest, Authenticity, Vitality, and Empathy.
Lovely. What a beautiful place for us to finish today, Lucy. Thank you so very much for being with us. We are so proud of you and absolutely everything that you're achieving. And thank you so much for being brave enough to step back in to a space that was once so terrible for you, and to have the courage to go back in and now be the change maker and the thought leader that you are.